All right, guys. Opportunity to feature a new player. This person hasn't been seen before, but we're joined by someone who we have seen plenty of before. However, usually they're playing in the golden colors, and that's not the case today. That's right. We've got Matus in the red playing as the Roos on King of the Hill up against MOA Metal. Now, MOA Metal, more recent edition, 200 games played, is currently sitting 144th on the leaderboards. So this person is climbing up pretty fast. This could be a Smurf. It could just be someone completely new. I'm not sure of that right now. But excited to see what they can do. Playing as France up against the Roos. Roos, of course, now playing a very different style of Age of Empires. This type of game, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Raxes early on out the Roos player. Obviously, things have changed for those who've only just recently tuned in. There were some hardcore nerfs coming the way of the Horse Archers. That is not as powerful anymore. And Roos also one of the biggest impacted civs in terms of the nerfs to scouts, because remember, pro scouts now, when you pick up deer carcasses, you move a lot slower to return them. So you're a lot more vulnerable, especially against a very dynamic civ like the French that have access to knights. So it'll be very hard, I think, for Matisse to kind of cruise through to castle ace. He's going to have to find a way to like defend any expansions or any attempts to play pro scouts. And I do still feel like, because of the nature of having this hunting cabin early on producing scouts, pro scouts is still very desirable to the Roos players. But to do it now requires a sidestep. You can't just say, I'm going to pro scouts and do nothing until castle. You have to have a defense force in place. It's similar to the logic behind the way HRE plays, but of course, their relevance comes in castle, and what I'm about to say, which is when they build prelates, right, and they go to castle, they build units to defend them, right? They don't just run prelates out. That was the thing that was making pro scouts really broken, is that essentially you were playing like the HRE's castle age timing resource gathering, right, via like they go for relics, but you didn't have to defend it, right? That was the absurd part, is that when you compare to HRE paying 100 gold, they had to defend that unit because it was slow moving. Now, with these pro scouts being sluggish at about 1 movement speed per second, they're a lot more vulnerable to even infantry sniping them out when they try to return the carcasses. Anyway, early sniping looks like MOA is quick on it. Actually, is it MOA or MOA? I'm just going with MOA. So, although it's all caps here, which means you guys can't quite tell, on their profile, it's MOA in capitals and then metal all lower, which has me thinking that they're just a fan of the singer. I believe it's an Asian singer called MOA who does like heavy metal, if I'm not mistaken. Moa Kikuchi, who is a Japanese musician. I think that might be the reference, which is why like this could be a Smurf, or it could just be someone who's good at the game and is a big fan. You have to remember that not everyone who's in the top 200-300 on the Age of Empires 4 leaderboards is thinking of being a pro player sort of thing. Some of them just have names of things they like. You know, like maybe someone's just going to be called Cat Lady 559. No relevance behind it, other than them liking cats. So opening-wise, it's just going to be standardized. Nothing's going to deviate there. The deviation should come afterwards. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if Matisse does go early into spears. He could also opt to wall himself in. There's a nice, easy wall choke point here for the 4-5 palisades, and then you can put another one here and then quickly shift one here. That would actually be a really smart play. Would offset the aggression and give you enough time to put down a Rax, spam out 5, 6, whatever, spearmen, and station 2 at each of the gaps so that if the knights show up, you can poke and stab them through the walls. We'll see if he does that, though, or if he has something a bit more fluid in mind. Knights are an option. I just don't like Roos Knights against French Knights. I think French Knights just overall have the advantage. Remember, for a start, French Knights, after they charge in, get bonus damage for 3 seconds. There's also the fact that they can heal via the Chivalry, something that the Roos Knights cannot do. And it means that you make this heavy investment of 240 resources per unit for a unit that can't actually be healed until you get to Castle, and if you want to go for Monks to do that. Looks like Matisse is going to find a little bit more bounty. He needs to find more bounty right now. Only just about to crack past the 200, so still lagging behind. He actually needs to kill 5 sheep, and I think he's only got 1, maybe 2 back in base right now. So frustrating situation. Oh my god, he needs 1 more. Is there anything left other than boars? Boars are not really an option right now, although they are an option that opens up if you go for those early knights. Like I said, though, don't want to see it in this matchup. Yeah, he's got 1 sheep here, but far away from base. The question is whether we're going to get double pro scouts. So it's going to be wheelbarrow first. This is interesting out of Moa. A lot of people tend to like delay the wheelbarrow when I've seen like French more recently, or any civ really. Like they'll get it halfway through like feudal. Instead, you can see Moa actually went for it before even cracking feudal, really valuing it highly, and I think this is respectable. I think especially in this type of matchup, it makes sense. Like, you understand that Matisse doesn't want to play into knights because you're France. So what this is all about is you want to exploit pocket economies. It's one of France's biggest strengths, their ability to just shift their villages out to all these different areas that other civs would be too paranoid or feel too exposed, because you tend to dictate the mid area of the map via these dominant royal knights. And it is going to be confirmed now. Like, you see the scouts also get this information from Moa. Spears are being built by the Rus player. So Matisse has no intent to try and aggress. It means that this wheel barrier is definitely going to find its bang for buck, because you'll quickly be able to move out to these kind of more risky, or usually more risky locations, like the berry bush lines over here, or maybe the gold in the center. And it also just means less downtime, right? Like, because also your villagers move quicker between these. If they ever get assaulted, you can move quickly away, especially when you see your opponent is building a static army, not a dominant, like, fast-moving army. In fact, when we look at the movement speed, you can see 1.29. Spearmen, for reference, 1.25. Yes, they get a charge speed, but they have to get in range for that. The scouts around the back. I'm going to poke and prod. Takes a while, though, so Moa shouldn't feel too pressured just yet. Might want to get something to address that. He's starting to build into the knights now, which are riding across, and still no walls. But Matisse, because he went into the spearmen, he doesn't necessarily need the walls. I think it's like, it's a missed opportunity to simplify your situation, though. And it does mean that you're going to have to regularly dance back and forth left to right in your base. The only good news for him right now, obviously, is that you only have one exposed eco line, so these knights aren't going to find easy value. It's not like when you're up against other civs that are on the gold at the same time. Remember that the Rus players are very comfortable for a long time to not be on gold. I don't feel like that's as true now as it used to be, though, and I think that you kind of need to be on the gold a little bit to supplement. But I think this is where the power of the Golden Gate is, right? Like, you're able to just push wood into gold, and that's how you're able to fill these knights. It just means you don't offer yourself any scalability or any like aim clearly or quickly into a later stage of the game. Racks now being dropped, so Moa is getting into the spears. And Knights are just chasing away all of the scouts. Pro Scouts hasn't been taken. Doesn't look like it, right? No Pro Scouts at all. I can see where it's come from. It's a lot of gold. I think if you're going into the Knights, it's very difficult to then justify going into Pro Scouts, because it's just such a big expense, unless you're on the gold. And I think that makes it obvious as well. Moa doesn't feel threatened that his opponent is going to go into Deers, because he sees the gold is untapped, and he sees he has a stable down. This is the thing. This is, like, when you actually like stop and look at what your opponent has and just think about it a little bit, it's very easy to understand their intent and what they can flex their economy to. Like, when you talk about people who played hundreds of games, they understand at this stage in the game, even with a Golden Gate, there is no way in hell that Matisse has the resources to field several knights, like 2 or 3 knights, and then also be researching Pro Scouts. So there's absolutely no risk that your opponent is going to stack an economy underneath his TC. It means that Matisse is going to be forced to come out and play, and that's exactly what this trip military production is about. He has all the boxes ticked, and he kind of has to, because he's limited on vision, right? His scouts have been being chased away. There aren't many of them left. He sees his opponent has spears and these knights. And like we said, knights alone, like, to answer out the knights isn't good for Rus, because yours won't heal, while the French ones will. So now, in this situation, he'll get rid of spears. He'll have his own spears to offset the knights. And it means that if you want to match it, Moa's going to have to build an archery range. And that's what he's doing. And once again, I think France now has the edge. Because like I said, the coming minutes, he's going to start building these pocket expansions. Also, at the same time, his knights are just better. Right? Remember, Moa's knights, they get that charge in, they get that bonus damage for 3 seconds. And yeah, now he's expanding onto the deer line. Like we said, these pocket expansions. This is very responsible, very kind of reserved out of Moa, though, to build an outpost. A lot of French players wouldn't have bothered. Showing a lot of respect to Matisse, despite the fact that he doesn't really show any intent of moving out his base anytime soon. And Matisse did finally crack that tier 2, so he is getting that 10% additional gather rate. He's going to need it because he's already being outscaled. Remember, France, they produce these villages quicker. It's already a 2-villager lead, and that'll escalate quicker as the game goes on and people begin to take up more. I wouldn't even be surprised if Moa considers going for like a secondary TC at some point. If he sees that Matisse is sitting back and not coming out, that could be one way to exploit it, and then you just go for a fast castle timing. And I don't think Matisse can really match it. I think this is still, in my eyes, one of the worst maps for Rus players. The reason is this right here. You see how tiny this wood line was. I think no other Civ relies on wood early on as much as the Rus. Because usually you want to drop a wooden fortress, you want to tap into it hard, and then you want to use it to efficiently trade via the Golden Gate for whatever you really need. The problem is, like, after you do these initial tiny tree lines, it's so far to go to reach a new tree line. And this is also something that I think France utilizes very well, is usually when you're in a game where France is pressured, they need to switch into farms. They need to play protective. So they suffer from a lack of wood too. But in a game like this, you don't feel that way. Like, Moa can easily just shift out onto these berry bush lines and never feel threatened in this game. And that's why Matisse is out here. He needs to try and reveal that threat, right? I know someone's bringing up in the chat that England relies a lot on wood. That is true, but I think England actually has the initial like aggressive units to protect themselves. And also, like, although they want longbows and farms, their farms are discounted at 50%. You don't get that discount as the Rus, right? And I feel like right now, like, if you want to go for the gold build, right, you need hunting cabins. They cost 100 wood each. Also, another area you suffer in is like these small tree lines. It's very hard to find value out of multiple hunting cabins. And also, raid now coming in from Moa, to Moa from Matisse. It's hard to find value though. Just a few spearmen are going to offset you entirely here. And it's why you're getting away with this greed. Moa, this is the thing. If you waited for Moa to move to this berry bush line, I think you would have killed off several villages there. But Matisse kind of jumped the gun. Now, although he slows things down a little bit and draws attention, he's not going to actually find the exploitable value he's looking for. And instead, Moa, instead of risking going on those berries now, see, he just switches entirely over to the deer. And now it's his turn to ride in. Samoa moving in. Economy is protected. A decent standing army at home for Matisse, so it should be very hard for Moa to breach. But just the frustration, the attempts, and this is the thing, you've secured the north. This is what I was talking about. Like, you have to run all this way. He has done a good job of getting this down. I talked about these palisades earlier, but your south is still exposed. The only good news is you're not using the south right now. However, you want to. You can see it. You can see that he really wants to move out with these villages. Charge in. Spears do engage. Oh, but Moa is backing off, showing a lot of respect to the hardened spears. And that's going to buy room. TC being dropped. Matisse, this is the move. I love this. Moa shoe weakness. He was willing to back away. The moment he was threatened, he was like, no, okay, whoa, chill. I don't want problems. And that means that now you're going to be able to scale. With this secondary TC, you can easily wall these two areas up, and you're protected. And then all of a sudden, Moa, this early kind of aggression with the Knights, the composition that was feeling good, you force it back to a later timing, where, yes, you can talk about Arbor of Trees, but then you also have to talk about things on the other side, right? Like these Knights reaching their true potential, like the fact that you can easily go into the Boys' Fortitude to stack up the health on your units. Maybe even Horse Archers find some relevance in the composition for the Rus player. Like, there's a lot more options opening up in Castle Age for Matisse. And then also you have to consider things like the relics, right? Playing in for them, picking them up and returning them. Yes, there was a nerf to the movement speed of warrior monks when they're collecting and carrying relics, but they still move pretty fast out there, so they should be able to collect these much quicker than the Moa can ever possibly think of doing so. Nice wrap here. So Matisse going to be blocked in. Oh, he gives him room though. So he'll lose one, but I think Matisse should get the other two out when he shouldn't have. I didn't say that. Turning around. Oh, okay, forget it. There's too many troops here. Matisse can waste their time, though. This is definitely the best thing to do in this situation. You know you're eventually going to lose the troops. Just drag as many of these military units far back behind the base so they're not ready to quickly push in on your side, right? It buys you more time. And the walls are now up. So Matisse is well protected. Moa. Army is building. In fact, we look at the count right now. Matisse 41. Moa has 38. But I think there's a lot more cavalry here for Moa, as it does feel like Matisse slowed down on that side. A few knights to skirmish, and that was about it. And this is the point where Matisse accelerates. This is what we were looking for, right? He didn't have this wooden fortress before. Now he's getting a ridiculous amount of wood influx. And he was even saving a lot of these Golden Gate charges for this moment. And he just heavily invests across. Now all of a sudden he's able to start affording the premium units, right? Going into the night, starting to stack up that army again. And even if he wants, at this rate, like in the next few minutes, he can consider Castle. Castle much quicker than Moa, because Moa is hard invested into a military force that he needs to now use. On two fronts as well. Spearman in position to push away the Knights. Now he just needs to address the other side. Archer count is really good for him. He could actually engage right. Matisse has the edge. Yeah. Just fire away. Force him off. And you can't stand and fight. Instead, you're going to lose a few in the retreat. So hard for you to breach here. You've already been repelled from the north because you only brought knights and the spears here. And all of a sudden, look at the ride out. Matisse understands when he can exploit. And I love this detail that he's always been implementing with his raids. He brings a scout every time. Notice that. Something that I want to see a lot more Roost players do when they start to utilize these knights in the early game. You need to have a scout. That vision advantage is huge. Look how quickly he can scout out anything around him. He's able to see any of these pocket expansions. And it's especially effective against France because you know they're going to be going for pocket expansions. And if you ride east right now, there is so much killable economy here. And that's what he's doing. And he's going to get the heads up quickly. And that's the beauty. He can shift back and forth quickly. He can scout out. He can know exactly where to direct his efforts twice as quickly as a player who wouldn't have a scout here. And while he repels back at his base, now he rides in. 3 knights are going to do a lot of damage here. Straight in. 1 gone already. And there's nowhere to run. This is the greed of France. And this is the price you pay. Should be able to get the rest away, but it's the fact they're not gathering. Look how far they have to run. Even if you don't kill them, there's the fact that now it's idle economy. That is now 19 workers doing nothing for you in your economy. That's almost half of your worker force. You can't afford to be slowed down like this. You can't breach the base. You're forced to now try and react behind you. And it doesn't feel good. Because although you will eventually pinch these few knights, it's the time they waste. Right? Think about how many missed gathering points you've now got. Between those 19 villages, the amount of time that have been delayed not working over here is it's going to be the price of these knights. And even if you lose them now, that's what makes it worthwhile. It's the fact that you're stunting the economy. And all the while, you're scaling your own. I mean, you can see it now. Moa, 53, 61 for Matisse. Matisse is going to continue to scale like this because he has that secondary TC. And Moa has not done the same. No intent. And Matisse is now going up into Castle Age. Moa is not ready at all. Moa continue to double down the feudal. It's going to be do or die. The moment you see that tick up in a castle, you need to breach the base. You can't wait around. And that's why the ram's already been built. He understands that because Matisse isn't coming out, he has to be teching up. There's no other logic behind this. There's no reason you should be sitting in your base this long. It's going to be too late to interrupt, but it might be quick enough to punish it. But you need to move fast. And I feel like just 1 ram isn't good enough. In the meantime, Matisse using those knights to snipe out the boars. A little bit extra gold in the bank. And you're never going back for this expansion. Moa has limited resources to work with right now. The berry bushes won't last long at this rate. And then you have to transition to farms. You don't want to be in that uncomfortable situation. It needs to be now. There it is, the tick up. The Castle Age. Second ram just about to be constructed after they do the dancing worship. They have summoned a ram out of nowhere. And now they will push in. And the 4-5 pass says the extra 1,000 health. It does take a noticeable amount of extra time to get through here. So many spears and archers. Enough to hold you back, son. Upgrades should be underway. Man at arms being switched into. Spears and archers being upgraded right now. You can delay this. You don't have to rush to defend this. Let them come in. Give them the ground with which to kill themselves. Because that's what's going to happen here. No, I just don't think this is going to be quick enough. The upgrades are about to come through. You can see the delay. Matisse, this is so disciplined. They ride in. They force the fight. Archers on the front. The spears being blocked by the archers. So a decent amount of archers being picked off here. Upgrades are finally about to come through, but the damage might already be done. The counts are depleting quickly here as the knights are riding on in. There it is. Upgrades finally there. Their archers, now they can turn and fight. However, the spearman count is getting pretty low for Matisse. And the knights are around the back. They're dragging you further around. The rams are in onto the expansion TC. The damage is being done, but is it going to be good enough? Moa is mowing through Matisse. Matisse seemingly made a mistake with his formation, but it doesn't matter. Moa is convinced the game is over. He understands that this is just not good enough. Maybe you get through the TC, but the age advantage, the eco advantage is already too big, and it means that Matisse will take the win. Really interesting choice by Moa to tap out there, though. I think I can see where Moa's coming from. Like, from our eyes, we see this fight. We're like, this is a good fight. Like, you're winning. You feel good. Yeah, you can totally take this still. I think what matters, though, in Moa's eyes, is that you're running out of resources to deplete safely back in your base. After you got blocked on that northern expansion, I think that was the MVP moment. Notice you never went back there. You're always paranoid about those roaming knights. But you can't go and address them because you have to double down on the inn now. Because you see that tech up, because you understand your timings, if you ever choose to waste more time chasing those knights, it means Matisse gets the tech ups, takes an easy fight at that point with the vet advantage on both the longbows and spears, and it's not even close. This only ever looked close because of how quickly Moa went into the base. So after that army's gone, Moa has the understanding of the game to realize that there's no way you're rebuilding that army quick enough, right? Like, you're outscaled. It's 2 TCs versus 1. Your opponent has a Castle Age tech up. Even if you drag this 5 or 10 minutes longer, it's a clear advantage for Matisse. One that is going to push and exploit to get all of the relics, and then also have, a clear footing ahead of you. And then if you have to talk about Imperial, once again Matisse will arrive before you. So overall, understandable that Moa taps out. Really well played by Matisse, showing you once again how different Rus are now. And it's fun to be able to say that, right? Before it was always the same. Yeah, just gather the carcasses and go for Castle Age. Woo! Finally, something different. So excited to see people tap into more Rus. We saw some knights being used there in a more skirmishing capacity. I think that's the right call. I don't think going heavy knight composition is good enough unless you have like a wood heavy map that can exploit it. Just a few for skirmishing purposes is fantastic, and Matisse show you exactly that in this game. But guys, if you enjoyed what you saw here, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the videos. Make sure you comment, because it lets YouTube know that you love us. And if you think someone's going to love these videos, make sure you share it with them as well, because that's always appreciated. And if you want to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it, make sure you follow all those links below to keep up to date with anything and everything I'm doing. But thank you for watching, guys.